Haunted Doll's House by M.R. James Reimagined. The email arrived in Noah's inbox late one evening. It was from a small antiques dealer in the countryside, advertising a collection of unique items for sale. Noah had a passion for collecting rare, eclectic antiques, and his latest obsession was vintage dollhouses. He had been searching for one in particular, something old, intricate, and unmistakably unique. The email contained a photo of a beautiful, handcrafted doll's house. It was Victorian in design, complete with red brick walls, tiny bay windows, and delicate lace curtains. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Even the roof tiles were individually painted. It was the kind of item that collectors like Noah dreamed of finding. A note in the email piqued his curiosity even further. This piece has a mysterious past, rumored to have belonged to a wealthy family whose history is troubled, not for the faint of heart. Noah immediately called the dealer. The transaction was swift, and 2 days later, the doll's house arrived at his home in a large, carefully packed crate. Noah lived alone in a modern townhouse in the city. He cleared space in his study for the doll's house, placing it on a sturdy table beneath a warm desk lamp. As he unpacked it, he marveled at the intricate details: tiny furniture, hand-painted wallpaper, miniature porcelain dishes, and even oil lamps with flickering LED lights. Oddly though, the house didn't come with any dolls, no family figures, no servants. Just the house itself. Still, it was perfect. That evening, Noah spent hours examining every room, opening tiny doors and drawers, and arranging the furniture. By midnight, he was satisfied. He clicked off the desk lamp and went to bed. The first night. At 3:13 a.m., Noah woke up suddenly. A soft creaking sound echoed faintly through the house. At first, he thought it was the wind rattling the windows, but the weather was calm. The noise seemed closer, like floorboards shifting. He got up, groggy but uneasy. As he padded down the hall to his study, he noticed a faint glow coming from the room. He opened the door and froze. The doll's house was lit from within. Warm, golden light glowed through the miniature windows, spilling onto the table. Noah stepped closer, his heart pounding. He hadn't installed any lights in the house. The LED lamps were purely decorative and non-functional. Then he saw movement. Shadows flickered across the tiny windows, as though figures were walking inside. Noah leaned in, peering through the front bay window. What he saw made his blood run cold. Inside the doll's house, two tiny figures, porcelain dolls, stood in the dining room. He could see them clearly now. A man in a dark suit and a woman in a long, old-fashioned dress. They were frozen in place, as if caught mid-conversation. But Noah was certain they hadn't been there before. He hadn't placed any dolls inside the house. He reached out, hesitated, and then opened the front panel of the house. The figures were gone. The rooms were empty, just as he'd left them. Noah closed the panel and stepped back. Maybe he was overtired. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him. He turned off the light, left the study, and went back to bed. But sleep didn't come easily. The second night. The next evening, Noah was hesitant to return to the study, but curiosity won out. He sat before the doll's house, studying every inch of it in the light of his desk lamp. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He even pulled out a magnifying glass to inspect the rooms more closely. No dolls, no lights, no movement. Satisfied, he left the room and went to watch TV. Hours passed and he forgot about the doll's house, until he heard a loud thud from the study. Noah bolted upright. The sound hadn't been subtle. It was as if something heavy had fallen. He rushed to the study and was greeted by a strange sight. The doll's house's front panel was wide open, though he was certain he had closed it. The tiny dining room table was overturned, and the chairs lay scattered across the floor. The chandelier, a delicate crystal ornament, was swinging slightly as though it had just been disturbed. And then he saw them again. The dolls were back. This time there were 4 of them. The man and woman he'd seen before, along with 2 smaller figures, children. They stood in the upstairs bedroom, perfectly still, but their placement felt deliberate. Noah couldn't shake the sensation that they were staring at him. He stepped closer, his breath shallow. As he reached out to touch one of the dolls, a sudden icy draft swept through the room, extinguishing the desk lamp. The study was plunged into darkness. In the silence, he heard it. Faint whispers, high-pitched, frantic, and overlapping. The sounds seemed to come from inside the doll's house. Noah stumbled backward, his heart racing. He fumbled for the light switch on the wall, but when the room was illuminated again, the whispers stopped. The house was as he'd left it, front panel open, furniture disarrayed, and the dolls in their eerie positions. The truth revealed. The next morning, Noah called the antiques dealer. He demanded to know the history of the doll's house. At first, the dealer was reluctant to say much, but after some pressure, he relented. The house, it seemed, had belonged to the Wexler family, a wealthy Victorian household with a dark past. According to local legend, the entire family had been murdered in their home one night by a disgruntled servant. The house had been demolished years ago, but the doll's house was said to have been modeled after the original building. It was rumored to be cursed, with strange events following anyone who owned it. Noah hung up, his stomach churning. He decided then and there to get rid of the doll's house. That evening, he packed it carefully into its crate and left it on the curb for the garbage truck. The final night. But the doll's house wasn't finished with him. At 3:13 a.m., Noah woke to the sound of creaking floorboards. The noise was louder this time, closer. He sat up in bed, his pulse quickening. Then he saw it. The doll's house was back. It sat on the table in his study, its windows glowing faintly in the dark. The front panel was open, and the dolls were no longer inside. Instead, they were standing at the foot of his bed. Noah's scream echoed into the night, but no one heard it. By morning, his townhouse was empty. The doll's house remained on the table in the study, pristine and ready for its next owner.